Greg Zesha and Ran Musica, two of the original co-founders of BioWare, have been named members of the Order of Canad, an honor reserved for those deemed to have enriched the lives of others and made a difference to Canada through their actions and achievements. The duo is among 103 Canadians receiving the honor this year, alongside an author, playwright, Olympian, and broadcaster, among others. Zesha and Musica, alongside several others, founded BioWare in Edmonton, Alberta in 1995 following their graduation from medical school. In an interview with LBA, the pair said that BioWare's early roots in Alberta helped the current industry establish its roots in the region. "We did it here in Edmonton," Zesha told LBA. "We did not start it and go off somewhere else." The pair left BioWare and retired from the game industry as a whole in 2012, but remained in Canada and continue to work toward bettering their communities. "It's not just what we did at BioWare, it's what we continue to do to try to make everything around us better," Zesha told LBA. "I think that's a key part of it. How we do it and how our philosophy around making a business and building businesses and working with the people, building people up. Naughty Dog is known for shipping games that are both engaging and highly cinematic, and at next year's Game Developers Conference in March you will get an inside look at how the magic is made. Specifically, you will get to see Naughty Dog's story. Animator Mary Ann Hayden pull back the curtain on the design of Uncharted. The Last Legacy's charming cinematographer felt riding her game narrative summit session on Design vs. Story, how Uncharted, The Last Legacy, addressed the elephant in the room. This promises to be a fun, informative talk that will give you an inside look at the story and design process at Naughty Dog. You will learn from both a design and production standpoint how an animal originally intended as background became a vital part of the narrative, and the useful vehicle for bonding two characters together. For more details on this talk, and many more, check out the LINEGDC 2019 session scheduler. There you can begin to lay out your GD 2019, which takes place March 18th through the 22nd at the newly renovated Moscone Center in San Francisco. Bring your team to GD. Register a group of 10 or more and save 10% on conference passes. Learn more. For more details on NGDC 2019 visit the show's official website, or subscribe to regular updates via Facebook, Twitter, OS. Gamasutra and GD are sibling organizations under parent company Informa. Hi, I am Toby and I am the lead on the user interface redesign for Sunless Skies. This is a major overhaul, touching every element of the way, so I wanted to give a bit of insight into our rationale for the redesign, and explain the thinking behind the decisions we have made. A bit of background. We delayed the release of Sunless Skies till next January because we wanted to improve several key areas of the game. Of this, a major priority was the game's UI and user experience. Sunless Skies is a relatively text-heavy game, and demands a greater than average amount of reading from the player, and we wanted that reading experience to be as immersive, atmospheric and intuitive as possible. At the same time, we took the opportunity to shift the tone of the interface to better align with the increasingly dark and spooky game world. We only had a few months, so there was no time to start from the ground up. We had to be economical, adapting existing technology wherever possible. Pictured the previous UI design dating from our early access launch in September 2017. Identifying problems, we began with an analysis of our existing UI. Having chosen the areas we wanted to focus on, we had to quickly produce wireframes. Adobe XD was useful for this, and problem solve on the go during implementation. One of the primary issues we identified was less than ideal reading experience. This was due to a few factors, among which the most significant was the off-center positioning of the reading panel. This was an aspect of the old design, a panel-based system, which allowed users to open any combination of two interfaces in a left-right configuration. The intention was to allow the player to review their inventories, whilst simultaneously interacting with story content, allowing simultaneous comparison of different inventories, and so on. The unfortunate result of this design was the pushing of the reading panel off the screen center, the sometimes confusing and unpredictable visual layout, as well as a general loss of real estate in which to display content. Pictured the new design, featuring a center side panel layout, link to larger image. Simplification. For the update, we decided to cut back on this design. We moved away from the mixed two-panel design to a center panel side panel layout. We centered and expanded the reading panel, and expanded the inventories whilst locking them to the side of the screen and adding tag cycling. We allowed a small amount of travel in the reading panel when the inventories panel opened to afford more space to the interface as a whole, while ensuring that the reading panel would remain centered if no other interface required real estate. I wanted to cut back on the three-dimensional button having appearance of the existing GUI, presenting the written content as seamlessly and free of distractions as possible whilst remaining intuitive. To this end, we cut back on overt affordance in the reading interface, using coloration, indenting and dividers to indicate HOTS/POTS rather than buttons. Text logging and readability. The biggest technical challenge we faced during the redesign was the implementation of logging. Previously, area selection made in the reading panel would wipe and refresh the content entirely. Adding logging allowed players to review their past decisions and refresh their memory on previous events in the current area, as well as tackling layout issues where the refreshed content might consist of only a single line. Implementing this system posed many challenges: smooth fading and transitioning of large quantities of text, a scroll bar that could adapt dynamically to these changes, and defining the rhythm and appearance of new content. Ultimately, I think this system adds a feeling of weight to player decisions and just feels more natural to read. HUD matters. The inventories all received a degree of attention, again with the intention of increasing readability, whilst also better leveraging of the icon library. One feature of the redesign was a 50% increase in the size of our small icons. You can generally see what they are supposed to be now. Changes here were typically less substantial and more about layout, adjustments, and aligning visually with the reading panel, as well as improving affordance and highlighting to better indicate areas of interaction. For the HUD, we moved away from the spherical health indicator and crude fuel supply indicators, which we considered too difficult to read, and moved back to a more traditional border format. The contrast, size, and coloration of the borders was reconsidered to better balance their visual priority and provide better at-a-glance access to key data. All HUD elements were moved to the lower portion of the screen and reframed, ensuring a better visual balance and easier comparison, especially of the central hit bar and the health bar on the left. Pictured an example of the new content loading feature. Link to larger image. Atmosphere. To refine the tone and atmosphere of the GUI, We adjusted the texturing and saturation of the frames to give a more distressed appearance, and used a more restricted color palette in the text with brighter colors reserved for interaction and important points of interest. Another challenge was selecting a typeface that felt tonally correct. Sunless Skies takes place in an alternate history Victorian setting, whilst remaining readable.